You are now listening to the Going North podcast with your host, author and speaker, Dom Brightman. And every Monday and Thursday, you're going to hear the voice of a different author share their stories, expertise, and their struggles that they had to overcome in life to leave you inspired to get more out of your life. Be sure to not only listen to this episode, but share with others, connect with the authors, and always advance others to advance yourself. Now let's get on with the show. And today on one of the top-ranked self-help podcasts in the world as of 2019, thanks to the wonderful Steve Olsher, it's the Going North podcast, baby, and we're back at you with another author, but not just any author. We have an award-winning author in the house today in the podcast house. Let me tell you a bit about her. This wonderful lady right here, she is a fellow introvert who has overcome a lot. And she's overcome a lot, and she's lived many lives in her short life, in this lifetime anyway, on the planet, because she's worked as a flight attendant, a hairdresser, and a bartender. And she's also revamped her life as a registered nurse. And the wonderful thing about this wonderful lady is that for the past 28 years and counting, she's worked with hundreds of women to overcome alcoholism, to live better lives, and become better parents. And in 2019, we're going to be needing all sorts of that wonderful goodness. And you're probably wondering who this wonderful award-winning author is. It's the one and only LB herself, Miss Lisa Boucher. How are you today, ma'am?
I'm doing well, Dom. Thank you for having me. And I want to give you kudos. You pronounced my last name almost 100%, Boucher. But you were super close, and I appreciate that. Most people get it wrong because it's French.
They probably thought of the fries and had them before they interviewed you.
It's okay. It's okay. It's totally okay.
Woo! Well, glad I was able to get at least close enough. Close enough indeed. Maybe close enough, but not the full cigar, as they say, right?
That's okay. It was pretty darn close. So you're doing good.
Sweet. And I get to interview a great person today. And the beautiful thing about it is introductions aren't allowed to be 37 hours long. So mind filling in some cavities where I missed some fillings in the introduction?
Well, let's see. I used to train horses, and I've had so many jobs. So I think you hit the highlights of them. There was a period in my life when I had a zillion meaningless jobs, just kind of struggling to make ends meet. So I think you got the gist of it. Bartending. I was a flight attendant for a while. Trained horses, did hair, worked as a waitress. All sorts of odd jobs. So you got most of them.
Sweet. All the OJs, all the odd jobs. That's right.
Yeah, you got to do what you got to do. I mean, when I was young and not real focused, shall we say, so, when I was just kind of floundering out there for a while.
But the good news about the flowering is that you jumped out of the lake and you became a human that's fully focused on helping out others.
Right. I mean, it took, when I think most of it is discussing my recovery, because during that decade when most people are setting up their lives when they're in their 20s, and they're getting their lives together, I was doing the party scene. And then, you slide into, I quit drinking when I was 29, which at the time I thought was exceptionally young, which, not so much anymore. More and more young people are getting on the sober bandwagon, which is awesome to see. But back, when I got sober, it was in the late 80s, and it just wasn't the chic thing to do. So, during that whole decade, like I said, in my 20s, I'm partying like a rock star. And, you wake up and you realize at 29, I thought, my God, I've been in and out of colleges for almost a decade. and haven't finished. I'm not really sure what I want to be when I grow up. I don't really have a plan for my life. So then you put down the booze and you start to regroup, and it's like, oh my God. And that's when I went to nursing school, because I was also in very early recovery, found out I was pregnant with twins. So I had these twins, and then I went to nursing school when my twins were 6 months old, because I thought, my God, I've got to do something to be able to put food on the table for these children if my marriage doesn't work out. So that's kind of why I went to nursing school. It's not the best reason, but, I've been in healthcare now for 25 years, and I think it's been instrumental in research, really, for my last book, Raising the Bottom. I feel like it was 24 years of undocumented research. We were talking a little bit before the podcast that, working with the public in a very intimate way and seeing things and situations and people in vulnerable positions, and then also you see the best and you see the worst. And so I think it's, when you work in healthcare, you do see a side of humanity that maybe a lot of people who don't work in that arena will never see and may never really understand some of the struggles, and also how lifestyle choices can ravage a person's life and their body physically. So that was very eye-opening for me, because by the time I started to work in nursing, I was sober. And when you realize that 80% of what rolls through the door is because of alcohol, drugs, and lifestyle choices, it's eye-opening if you want to see it. If you don't want to see that, then you're not going to see it. Does that make sense?
Yep, all the nickels and pennies.
Yeah.
Well, kudos goes to you for dropping the alcohol addiction at 29 and keeping strong with it.
Well, nobody quits back then, but I grew up with, my mom was an alcoholic, so I grew up in this crazy, chaotic environment, and she sobered up 7 years before I did, and I watched her go through hell, really. I mean, she did try to find help, but the doctors kept telling her she was depressed, and so they kept medicating her, and it was just a really tragic 25-year slide downhill between the prescription drugs and then the prescription drug abuse that she got into with the benzos, and then that escalated to alcohol later on. So I watched her hit a very low bottom, and I think once, like I said, she was sober 7 years by the time I got sober, and I think that's what helped me look at it sooner, because most people, I guess that's the myth I want to dispel, Dawn, and that's why I wrote my book, because you don't have to hit these horrible low bottoms. If I went to this conference, medical spiritual conference this last week, and they talked about, and I've been noticing this, and I was really glad to have it validated by some professionals in the recovery field and other physicians that understand addiction. And what is happening culturally is we've got a lot of heavy, heavy drinking going on, because you can't go anywhere now where there's not alcohol being served. I saw on social media today where there's these pudding cups that have alcohol in them. And,
wow.
It's insane. I said, do they even think, like, if a child gets a hold of those, kids that are allowed sips of their parents' alcohol have a 33% higher chance of becoming alcoholic? So now we've got these, let me see if I can see here. It's called spoonable spirits, boozy pudding shots. And they look like yummy yogurt cups, and they're bright colors, and they show them with sprinkles. And so this kind of thing, not to mention, women especially, our bodies are lacking a chemical. So we can't digest and process alcohol as well as men. And so it's a very long name, and I know it, but I can't say it right, so I'm not even going to try. I will trash it because it begins with an A, but it's a chemical. So women lack this, but now we've got pudding cups, and you've got push pops with alcohol in them, and you've got alcohol at salons and at dress shops and, any venue you go anymore, and with all the microbreweries popping up. So there's a lot of heavy drinking, and the point I was making about what the doctors were saying is that when you hang out with heavy drinkers, let me just talk about me. When I was drinking, I hung out with people who drank like me. And when I started to question my drinking, I would survey the room and go ask several people, do you think I'm drinking too much? And, of course, you get a round of unequivocal no's because they're drinking the same way I'm drinking. So when you're in that environment with other heavy drinkers, you think your drinking is normal. And it's not until you step out of it or you're with people that are truly social drinkers that'll have a drink, now and then, or maybe they go to dinner once a week and have a glass of wine or two, and that's kind of the end of it. That's social drinking. But nowadays, we call daily drinking, sometimes all-day drinking, social drinking. And that's not social drinking. It's alcoholism or alcohol abuse, or if you like this word better, abnormal drinking. It's just not normal to drink all day on a Saturday and say you're a social drinker. So that's where I think our culture and our society as a whole, I'm seeing more and more young people have it with liver disease. I didn't see that 10 years ago. You saw the chronic alcoholics with liver disease. Now it's happening to young women. It's happening to young mothers. It's all you have to do is go to South Florida and look at all the big livers walking around. I mean, being a nurse and knowing what to look for under those baggy blouses, there's often on women and men a big liver jutting out from those golf shirts that they wear. So I think we have to have this conversation of what is normal drinking and how we have normalized alcoholism in many, many ways. I mean, I'm sure you see it, Dom. I don't know if you're a party guy, but you know what I'm saying? It's just so out there, front and center.
Yeah, you're right. And funny enough, I was watching this YouTube video where it's talking about how you can see millennials in a different light. And it talked about how the biggest drug addiction among millennials is painkillers. And alcohol in a way, it's kind of a painkiller in a way because it may numb a pain in a moment for like quote unquote happy hour when it's really just sad hour where you're trying to forget stuff, and then you wake up later with a darn hangover or a bad headache, all because you're trying to numb a certain pain or just a certain displeasure when it's not really good in the long run. And that leads to the whole liver disease and the increase of it nowadays. And I'm thinking it's probably that just folks that they may have a lower pain tolerance for things that are just everyday compared to folks who dealt with stuff 10, 20, even 30 years ago, as opposed to now where, hey, you're just trying to cope with something that's really painful to you because you had never built up that tolerance to deal with that pain.
Well, emotional pain, you're absolutely right, is why people self-medicate. I mean, most addiction, I believe, starts in childhood. So I look at myself and my siblings. We've all had addiction issues. We grew up with an alcoholic mom, a rageaholic dad. He was rather physically abusive at times. He was verbally abusive. So you're growing up in this environment that's just insane. And you self-medicate these emotions that you don't know what to do with. And so many children are in stressful homes. There's a lot of stress. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of fear. And when these kids, at some point in their early teens, they're going to get a hold of a beer or a joint. You know it's going to happen. And all of a sudden, when they come from an environment that's so uncertain and they ingest this substance, whatever it is, and they realize they feel different. Oh my gosh, I'm not scared anymore. Oh my gosh, I feel better about myself. I feel braver. I feel like I can conquer life. And so there's the birth of addiction in many, many, many cases right there. That is the birthplace of addiction. So there's so much that we can do to prevent that, and it starts with the parents get a hold of their own vices and being responsible for their own mental and emotional well-being, so they don't, pass that on to their children, just like it happened in my family of origin. And I'm the only one of my siblings that has found recovery. The rest of them, they're functional, but there's a lot of emotional pain there. That's why they're continuing to self-medicate. And you're absolutely right. It's just, and with the pain pills, I was talking to someone just yesterday, actually, who had liver failure from the Vicodin. And people forget how much Tylenol are in some of these pain pills. And Tylenol alone, without any other painkiller in it, is extremely toxic to the liver. If you would have a Tylenol overdose, that's a very, very serious attempt. A lot of people try to commit suicide that way, and they don't realize that, they may survive this accidental overdose, but they may destroy their liver for the rest of their life. So it's not an innocent drug either because of the Tylenol, and then, of course, the addiction to the opioids. But I think we've been so focused on the opioid epidemic, and 70,000 plus died last year from opioids. 88,000 died from alcohol. So alcohol is still the most widely abused drug. And think of what a disconnect our society is. We've got big alcohol companies spending billions of dollars on marketing, and it is pushed, like I said, and it makes no sense because you've got corporations that are, they have booze on their outings and their sales calls or whatever, but yet the billions of dollars in lost productivity because of alcohol abuse. So it's like there is such a disconnect in what is being marketed to people, the lifestyle choices that we make, and then the things that we say we want, like to feel good about ourselves, to have strong, well-balanced families, to have, happy children. But our behaviors are the exact opposite of what you're going to get. You're not going to have happy, well-adjusted kids when you're out at happy hour all the time and your kids are feeling neglected and alone. And I will say to the women listening, of all the women that I've worked with in sobriety and whatnot, the moms, oh my God, their guilt is so heart-wrenching because once they sober up, and these are women that were, like I said, they were functioning, they were working full-time jobs, they were taking their kids where they needed to go, but they were also doing that with a travel mug of wine in the console, or they were spending a lot of time putting the kids with the babysitter while they're out with their gal pals and all of this nonsense. And when these women sober up, their pain is palpable. They didn't realize how they were never there. They weren't emotionally available to their children because they were so preoccupied with licking their own wounds, with when are they going to drink, who are they going to drink with, where are we going to go, what are we going to do, that the kids were just an afterthought. So, I guess the message I want to impart is you don't have to have that kind of pain in your life. If you look at your drinking and be honest with if you feel like it's getting out of hand in any kind of way, it's just so much easier to address it before you do hit those low bottoms.
Oh, yeah. That way it can raise the bottom, right?
That's right. Raising the bottom. Make mindful choices in this crazy drinking culture.
That's right. That's right indeed. Some mindful choices. Yeah, speaking of mindful, I'm pretty sure you incorporate mindfulness into your daily routine, if not daily living. Any advice for those who want to be more mindful of not just when it comes to those who may be trying to break away from alcohol altogether, but just making good decisions, period?
Well, I like to start my day. I have like a little morning ritual where I read spiritual books. I'll read some things out of the Bible. I like to spend time with God, and that centers me. And, sometimes I'm a little ADD and kind of all over, and there are times when I feel myself like just spinning out of control in my head, really. I just stop. And I say a little prayer, and I ask God to help me prioritize my day, to get centered. And, I used to love my mom when I would call her. She's passed now. She died in 2011. But she taught me this great little phrase, Lisa, say, where are your feet? Look at your feet. So wherever your feet are, that's where you are. And get into that present moment and stop projecting. Because most people, when their anxiety is a big thing now, everybody's anxious. And most anxiety is the result of projection, projecting into the future that you're worried about something you're not going to get that you want, or something's going to happen that you don't want to happen. And you have all this fear and anxiety all bundled up in these projections. Or if you're not projecting, you're ruminating about the past. So you've got to pull your, being mindful is making a decision to look for those kinds of things where, when you start to feel that anxiety, ask yourself, what am I worried about? What am I afraid of? I love journaling, picking up a pen and paper and writing down, sometimes just getting those anxious thoughts out of your head and onto a piece of paper can be magical. And when you look at whatever it is that you wrote down, then ask yourself, okay, here are my 5 things that are rolling around in my head and I'm full of anxiety and fear. Ask yourself, is there anything I can do about these right now? And if there's not, then you've got to make a choice to let it go, right?
Right.
Doesn't that make sense? If you can't do anything about it right now, why waste this precious moment worrying about something that you probably have no control over anyway?
That's right. Focus on what you can control.
Yeah, people are control freaks, There's that anxiety. I want to be able to control this and make them do this and make them do that. And, the bottom line is people are not going to do what we want them to do because we all have free will. So we got to let him be him and let her be her. And the people that we mesh with, we have relationships with, and the people that we can't mesh with, we wish them well and let them go.
Yeah, that's right. Just let them go. Release the leash. Stop.
cut the chain. Just done. Exactly. Let go of the reins. Tom.
Yes, indeed. I guess I had to fight so much not to say a bad horse joke with that one.
Oh, my gosh. You're funny.
Woo. Well, since you journal a lot, is there going to be another book coming out in the near future?
I hope so. I'm thinking of, yes, I do. I have one in mind. I may start it this summer. I'm going to take a few days and go to one of my favorite places in the world, which is a silent monastery. And my plan is, I really basically have the book started, to be honest with you, but I'm going to do something about helping people, something with the subtitle of 30 Days to a More Peaceful Life. Because I think there's a lot of people that, maybe they, like you were saying earlier, they don't need recovery, but they're still feeling anxious and a lot of the human emotions and type things. So I want to write something to help people, something they can put in their pocket, stick in their purse, and keep with them to give them when they need that, when they feel that anxious feeling coming, that they can start to apply. Because, we can read all the books that we want. We can go to all the gurus and classes and whatnot. But the bottom line is, whatever tips you learn that you like and you think you want to apply to your life, that is the key word there, is you've got to learn to apply them. Because it's reading something is one thing, but if you're not going to use it or apply it to your life, you're probably not going to change. And we only can change our behavior by choosing substitute behaviors. We can't have this vacuum. Like with recovery, I used to spend a lot of time. I mean, like I said, I was in my 20s, so I was out in the bars and the clubs and whatnot. So when I stopped going to those places, I had to fill my life with other things. And so that is one reason why I went back to school and went to nursing school. And then, of course, I had my sons were babies. So I was extremely busy with those. But it was a blessing because I was very focused, and it allowed me to have a very structured life and allowed me to change my habits and my patterns. Because most of us have patterns, and those patterns are either constructive or they're destructive. And therein lies why some lives seem to go better and some lives are more of a struggle. So it really goes back to us and looking at ourselves and being honest with ourselves and saying, okay, what are the things in my life that I'm doing that are not bringing me joy, that are not fulfilling, and they're not nourishing to my body? And if you're able to look at that and you're at a point in your life where you're able to answer those questions honestly, then you're at a point where you might be ready to make some changes that are going to be lasting and beneficial, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah, that's right indeed. Kind of interesting. One of your favorite places in the world is a monastery. All right.
It is. It's quiet. They don't talk. And I love that the monks, they pray 7 times a day, and they go into the chapel, and they chant the psalms, and it's beautiful. And I love that even if there are other people there, like when I've gone, I went one time between Christmas and New Year's, and it was practically empty. But at other times, like I'm going back this summer, there may be more people there because they have, the guest house. But I like that there is no pressure to make small talk, you don't have to talk to anybody. It's really kind of nice. And it's just a great place to let the creative juices flow, clear out the cobwebs, low pressure. Like I said, you're just there to pray. They've got 2,000 acres of beautiful grounds and woods and trails, and it's just very healing. I need to withdraw from the world sometimes and just find those quiet places, and nature always speaks to me. So I tend to seek out places when I need a break that are steeped in nature and quietness and solitude, and that works for me. So I enjoy going there, and it's just a special place.
Oh, yeah. Becoming one with nature.
Yeah, I love it. I still want to see an owl. I haven't seen an owl yet in the wild. I mean, I've seen pictures of them, but I want to see one in the wild. I've got birds. Like, I'm into feeding the birds now. And you wouldn't even believe some of the birds that come to the feeder. I mean, I just get a lot of joy out of looking at the birds. And then here come the deer. And I've got squirrels. And, it's just, I see God in nature. It speaks to me.
Oh, yeah. Who knows, maybe the owls will stalk you at night when you're not looking while you're asleep. Like, yeah, we're going to appear when she can't see us. It's like,
oh, my goodness.
Oh, man. Woo. Well, in addition to the Bible, I'm pretty sure there have been other books that have inspired you to join the business of immortality. So mine, sharing a title or two that has really inspired you to write your own book.
Well, I don't know if this book has inspired me to write my own book, but I love anything that Og Mandino writes. Have you ever heard of Og Mandino?
I love that guy.
Yeah, I do too. And so I think he has been a very inspiring person because I love that his books are positive and they're, like I was saying earlier, there's little tips that I've taken from his books that I think they have spurred me forward. That, this has been such a long process, and I always feel like I've had a headwind. There's like that, I'm chugging and charging against the wind, and nothing has ever really come easily to me. It's not, I've been writing since 1994. Raising the Bottom is my 5th book. The other 4 books, I think, were great practice for this one. So I think my writing and everything came together. But, that's a long process. And then you hear other authors, they write one book and they're on the bestseller list. I'm like, oh, my goodness. Well, God bless them, but that has never – it's not my story. That's not how anything's ever worked for me. And maybe someday that will change where the heavens will open up and things will just be super easy, but that has not been my experience. So Og Mandino, I love he talks about in the 10 Ancient Scrolls for Success. I mean, I cling on to the one little chapter that's all about perseverance. Because that's what I've had to do is persevere. I mean, I've walked away from writing for a couple of years at a time when I was just like so frustrated and fed up and why am I even doing this and what am I doing? And then, you have these little pity parties or whatever. And then it's like a few years would go by and another book idea would come. And I think some of it was my own thinking and limitations. I had to write 3 books before I thought, okay, I think I can call myself a writer, and I am an author. So, but, why did it take so long for me to accept or think I was worthy enough to be called a writer? Did I have, I think you can be a writer if you're someone who sits at home and you're writing poems or you're writing stories. You are a writer. But I never honored that in myself. I mean, I am a writer. I've been a writer since 1994, maybe even before, because I did talk about this a little bit in my book, but I found some very sappy, crappy romance attempts at writing a novel when I was in my drinking days, and I never really knew I did that till I sobered up, and then I guess I was moving or cleaning out a closet, and I found all this scribbly nonsense. So maybe that was within me, and I was always supposed to be a writer, but because of the drinking, I never found my gift until I sobered up, and I think that happens with a lot of people. I mean, even if you're not someone who has a problem with alcohol, it's just another reason to think about drinking less, because I think we are snuffing out all sorts of brilliancy. I think there's a lot of brilliant people with a lot of amazing gifts that are not being realized because they're spending so much time clubbing and drinking and recovering from drinking and then working, that there's no time to nurture the gift. So that is why I like Augmentino, because he gives me these little tidbits to think about and try to, like I was saying earlier, we've got to try to apply these things to our life instead of just read them. So when he talks about perseverance, I thought, you know what, that's what I'm going to do. I enjoy what I'm doing, and I'm just going to persevere.
I love the fact that you mentioned Augmentino. You're probably the first on this podcast to actually mention his name, because he sold so many books while he was alive. Well, heck, even past his death in the 90s. It's amazing, and his books are so great. I mean, yeah, the 10 Ancient Scrolls, that's a favorite of mine. Then there's The Greatest Mystery in the World. That was another one. And then The Rag Picker, and just so many great books.
Yeah. I didn't read The Rag Picker. I like that title a lot. I'll have to check that one out.
Oh, yeah, definitely got to check that one out indeed. And heck, even, I think it was A Choice. I think that was the name of the book. It was kind of like him in a lighthouse writing the whole time. Metaphorically, the story about him writing in a lighthouse, and at the end of the book, it gave like a transcript of a speech that he gave that was really powerful. He is such a great writer, and it's good that some folks actually read him in a way, or at least the first one to mention that you actually read some of his work and appreciate it.
Yeah, I do. I like it an awful lot. So I think he's been very helpful.
That's right. If I had a cupcake and we were face to face, I'd slide it right towards you with extra sprinkles.
Just not a boozy cupcake.
No, I don't do booze, so it wouldn't contain booze in the cupcake. That'd be horrible.
Okay, that's good. I bit into a piece of candy one time, and I thought, oh my God, that's like taking a shot. All this bourbon-y goodness rolling out of it. So.
Like, you know what?
Be careful with those sweet treats sometimes. It's like, whoa. Little, yeah.
The many forms of lose for trying to sneak in on your good parade, huh?
Right.
You know what? That Lisa lady's been doing a little too good recently. You know what? Let me dress up some alcohol and some candy, sneak it her way, see if it'll get her to come back to the dark side. That's right.
You never know.
That's right. You never know.
God willing. I hope I never go back there, but I'm not going to say never, because as soon as you say, oh, I'll never, that's exactly when you will. So I just say, by the grace of God, I'm sober today, and I'll just do it again tomorrow.
That's right. Yep, got to watch out for the chocolate now.
Yeah.
That's right.
Cheers.
But I'm not talking about me either. Don't worry about it. Oh man. Yes, indeed. But good stuff, though. Good stuff, indeed. Well, speaking of good stuff, if you were to wake up tomorrow and you were 25 again, but this time in the current year of 2019, what advice would you give to yourself?
I would say figure out what your code of ethics is. Have a code of ethics and stick to it. This world is crazy. There's people who are going to tug you one direction or this direction. And if you don't have your principles set firmly, I think it's really easy to get pulled off onto the wrong track. So I would say if and I do. I have sons that are 29 now, so they're a little older than 25. But we talked a lot about that when they were like, guys, what do you believe? Where are your morals and your values? Whatever that framework looks like, stick to it. Stick to your principles. And I think that if you can do that, you can navigate through life and encounter a lot of different people and be exposed to a lot of things, but at least you will know where you stand in that pack, as opposed to, I've seen so many people that they're chameleons. When they're with this crowd, they act like that. When they're with that crowd, they act like them. And it's like, well, who are you? So I don't know that we can find ourselves if we're not true to ourselves. So I would tell them, be true to yourself, figure out what you believe in, what your principles are, and stick to them. And that makes sense. Follow your plan.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Just stick one of those kick me signs that says plan on it, stick on the car, and just follow it. That's right.
Well, I mean, it's just, I feel bad when you see people that you meet them maybe one time and they're with this group of people, so they're this way, and then you encounter them somewhere else and they act totally different. And it's like, I just think maybe they're not sure who they are, or they're uncomfortable in their own skin, so they're trying to figure it out. I mean, you've got to be comfortable in your own skin. And I tell my boys that if you're not comfortable in your own skin, there is not a material possession, there is not a job, there's not a career title, there's nothing that is going to make you feel okay if you don't feel okay, whether you're rich, whether you're poor, whatever your circumstances are. You've got to feel okay with who you are. And I believe, and I've encountered so many people that just aren't. They don't really like themselves, they don't love themselves, or they don't feel they are lovable. And so in order for people to like them, they change like the wind. And what that does is, I believe, it takes a little piece of your soul every time you give a part of yourself away and you're not true to yourself and you're just responding and reacting to the situation and people around you. You lose a little bit more of yourself. So I really encourage my boys to be humble, to be authentic, and be true to yourself. And don't follow the whims and the crowd and the this and the that. It's just find your true north and be who you are.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. Yes, hey, be true to yourself. That's right. That's right. Don't be a pleather jacket out there. Be a leather jacket. That's right. Be true to yourself.
Be a pleather. Well, that's just it, right? If you can't buy leather, then don't buy pleather. That makes sense. Just so you know what? There's nothing wrong with saying I can't afford that leather jacket right now, so I'm going to wear a cotton one, but it's going to be a nice cotton one. I mean, just be real. Be real. I mean, just be real.
That's right. Really warm indeed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's right, especially for all the folks out in the northern areas of the world where they get the extra temperatures that are on the bottom.
Oh, gosh, yeah, up there in frigid north. God bless them. I thought it was bad enough in Ohio, but, parts of Canada, and I've got a niece in the Dakotas, and it gets pretty darn cold up there.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Colder than ice, but warmer than dry ice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, all righty. For those who want to keep in touch with the lovable Lisa, what's the best way to reach out to you?
Let's see. I am on Facebook, award-winning author Lisa Boucher. I've got a Facebook page. I'm on Twitter, Instagram at @LBoucherAuthor, and you can also find me at my website, raisingthebottom.com.
Oh, yeah, raise the bottom indeed. That's right. Not just in the morning when you get out of bed. Raise the bottom of life, baby. That's right. Go on out there, head over to the Amazons, pick up some copies of all of her books, follow her on the Instagrams, slide into her DMs and say, hey, you are one awesome chick. Keep doing great work, and keep in contact with her and keep encouraging her, because we need folks out there to realize that it doesn't pay to say at the bottom. You got to raise it up. That's right. You got to put metaphorical weed on it. You got to get higher spirits, metaphorically.
Well said, Dom. Well said. Thank you.
Oh, wow. Thank you indeed. Any parting words for our wonderful listeners, Lisa?
I just want to say I wish everyone a very happy Easter weekend, and grab my book, raisingthebottom.com, on Amazon. I've had women and men said it's been life-changing. They've changed. Some have made some drastic changes in their lives. They're happier. Their children are happier because mom's happier or dad's happier. So you have nothing to lose and everything to gain by grabbing a copy of Raising the Bottom. Look at, just be honest with yourself. I would have never changed. I wouldn't be sitting here talking to this wonderful host, Dom, or having, listeners listening to my words, had I not gotten honest with myself and said, I wasn't happy. And I knew in my depths that, okay, I think it's because I'm drinking too much. So I just decided to rise up, and really I thought I was giving up so much. And most people that when you think about quitting drinking, there's like sheer panic of, oh my God, I'll never have any fun anymore. And that right there is a good alcoholic thought. And so I couldn't have been more wrong. I was so wrong. I mean, that first year was hard because you have to readjust and figure out how to navigate life sober. But, I mean, my life is so much better, so much better. It's just been really amazing journey to do it sober, to become a writer, to become a published author, to, raise my boys sober. I get a lot of kudos from my sons. I mean, they're like, Mom, you crushed it. You were the best mom. They have a lot of respect for me, and I love that. I mean, if your kids don't respect you, I'm not so sure. I don't know. I'd feel terrible about that. So, and I think respect has to be earned, and you earn it, and I earned it by living my life and being honest, and my kids they know who their mother is, and I think they're very proud of that. So I'm grateful that I made the changes, and I hope if anyone out there is considering the changes, don't wait, just do it.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks a bunch for your listening ears, and it's time now because it's here. Book number 2 is finally here. Stay the Course. The Elite Performers, 7 Keys to Sustainable Success. And you can pre-order your ebook copy today by heading over to Amazon.com and pressing that Buy Now button for only 99 cents. It is a low-cost investment in advancing yourself into your greatness. So let's go ahead to Amazon.com, type in Stay the Course. Look for the book with the big fat red letters, Stay the Course, and the compass pointing north. And yours truly, Dominic Brightman, is the author. And I thank you in advance for all that you do. Go out there and dominate.